Hey everybody. Today we are going to talk about wraps per inch guides. Now, I have a lot of opinions, but I'm going to keep them to a minimum and just give you straight facts about the wraps per inch guides. And there's going to be a couple things that down below, the place where you subscribe, and you go a little bit further below that and you hit the more button and you'll be able to look and see. I'm going to post a blog post and it's going to have some extra forms and stuff in there that are going to help you know a little bit more about wraps per inch guides. So I've got a few with me, and basically what I want to show you today is how to wrap a wraps per inch guide. And I know it seems like it might be a little silly, but I've had questions, and for those of you that really know how to do it and it seems very straightforward, it does seem silly. And for those of you that have never done it or never thought of doing it, it seems like, exactly how am I supposed to do that? So I have a bunch of things that I want to show you. So this is a wraps per inch guide and Diz that comes from Shacked, and you can see there's a full inch here if you were to measure it, and on the opposite side there's a ½ inch. So you could, if you know math, wraps per inch, if it's a ½ inch, that would be half of what it is. So over here you might get 20 and here would be 10, which would equal the same. Math. It's basic math. Good thing we can do this. We got calculators on our phones. We can do this. Here's one from Trinkles. She's got a whole bunch of different ones, but this is one that I had made for the shop. It's 1 inch, but she's got the little bits marked off so that if I have a really thin yarn, I admit sometimes I only do a ½ inch because it's really thin, and I know that if I got ½ inch, I just double what I've got, and I know what my wraps per inch is. WPI, you see that all over the place, wraps per inch. So these are good. Sometimes this is something that we have in the shop, and it's actually, you wear it on your wrist, and you would put fiber around it for spindling, usually spindling. But there's also this right in here is 1 inch. So kind of handy. You got tools that are multiple purpose. There's the handy dandy rulers. This is a really old drafting ruler and it's heavy, heavy, heavy. I use it to make nice straight lines or to cut paper or something, usually when pattern making. But if it was better, you could probably, if I hold it in the light maybe, maybe not. But there's all the inch marks are on there, same as on this thing. It's a little tongue depressor kind of that we had put with we had it made like a business card, but it has 1, 2, 3, 4 inches on it, so we could use it for swatches. These are the ones that I keep on my desk, and this is if I have to do a wraps per inch, especially if I'm writing an article or something I need to just know, and the yarn, there's yarn all over my desk. So I usually just grab one of these because I've got a few of these left and I really, really like them. They're handy. So this is most often what I use, just a ruler. So any old ruler, as long as you know what an inch is, you can use. Oops. If I was any less of a klutz. This is a book. I just grabbed this off of my desk. And what you can do, if you always carry your book around with you. I carry my planner with me, but my planner is made out of leather, and I'm not doing this to that. You can take some washi tape, and you can measure out. Let's see. On here, I can put the first one right about here. Like if you've got, I used to carry a different kind of planner, and I would have done this with that probably because that planner is always with me, maybe more so than I would have a ruler or something. And then my washi tape isn't coming off very nicely, but I've got, let me turn that right side up so you can see I've got it set right there, and I could mark with washi tape where the other side of it is, if my washi tape wasn't just falling apart and sticking to everything that it's not supposed to. But I would put 2 good pieces of washi tape, one here, and mark off 1 inch, and then I can just wrap it around. Doesn't matter how big it is. What it matters is that inch mark. So, I mean, while I will effectively use more yarn on this one than I will on this one, I'm still gonna get the same measurement off of both of them, because what we're measuring is the number of yarns that go in here, not the length that we're using up. Let me show you what I mean. So I am gonna take just a piece of this that's left over, and this is worsted weight, and I know it's worsted weight. Sometimes you don't know what the yarn is, so you need to know the wraps per inch, because it kind of gives you an idea of what you've got, and that's why we do wraps per inch. But let me turn this right around this way. So I hold my yarn off to the side, and then I go and start wrapping. Now, I don't want to wrap too tightly. Let me wrap really tight. Can you see maybe that it's going on really, really tight? And then if I start wrapping really loose, you can see a visual difference in the yarn. You can see that this yarn is thinner looking than this yarn. I don't want to wrap really, really tight. I don't want to be really loose. I want to be medium. But the yarn, when I use it, how is that yarn going to look? It's probably not going to look like really, really tight, and it's probably not going to be sloppy. It's going to be just itself. So I just want to start wrapping it, and I want the threads to go right next to one another. I don't want them to ride on top of one another. I want them to be right next to one another. And I just wrap and I wrap and I wrap until I get to the end. And these aren't super together. They need to be, you know, one right next to one another. And you can see, there they are. See how they're right next to one another? There's no gaps. That's just how it is. You don't want gaps, and you don't want them to be riding on top of one another. You want them to be right next to one another. So there's that. That's how it should look. From one end to the other, 1 full inch. And if I wasn't doing a video and talking about it at the same time, I would have been counting as I do it. But since I wasn't, I'm going to count now. And we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. This yarn is 13 wraps per inch. So, easy peasy. And we can do it with all kinds of yarn. So, let's see. Here's my little ruler. And I should probably show you on this yarn. Let's pop that off instead of doing that. It's going to be the same thing, as long as I wrap it the same. See, I could wrap it completely different and it would come out different. But I'm gonna do the same wrap, not too tight. We're not doing it loosey-goosey. We are just gonna wrap it like we normally would. Use it. The pieces are gonna be right next to one another. There's gonna be no gaps. And it's going to not be too tight either. Oops, that doesn't. I have less to hold on to with this, so I can tell you that a thin, tiny little ruler is a little more difficult. It's a little easier to put in anything, but it's a little more difficult to get into anything. So, let's see. I'm pushing everything where it needs to be. And so there, it's from one line, whoops, to the other line would be right here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. So you see that it's exactly the same whether you're using a thin piece or a thick piece. What matters is that you're getting an inch off of it. And it works for hand spun. This is a very thin hand spun that I did. It's BFL silk, and I would probably only do half on this and find out what it is. And Noro, it's a little thick and thin. This is some cotton that we use for weaving, and can you see how it's very thick and thin? So I just want to show one more time. You know how to do this, but I want to show that it's the same whether you're doing a thick and thin. Like the wrapping business is still the same, but at some points, you know, you're going to have a thinner piece and you're going to have a thicker piece. So you can see right now there was 2 thinner pieces, and then that piece is thick. This is still giving you the general wraps per inch for a yarn. Oops, see, there's a thick piece right next to, and it's really hard to tell because this is a this is applied yarn and the color variations. But you would do it the same way. You would still wrap it. You would still count how many wraps per inch you've got, and then you would go from there. Now, the purpose in doing this is so that you know how thick your yarn is and what you've got. And on the blog, that's what I'm going to post, is I'm going to post a chart that gives you kind of a general idea. If you've got between this many and this many wraps per inch, you are working with a fingering weight, and this many to this many a sport, and this many to this many worsted, so on down the line. Kind of gives you an idea of what you have and how to start working with the yarn that you've got. There are other ways of using it when we're getting into the knitting, the crochet, and the weaving. So the wraps per inch guides are handy no matter what craft you're in, or just keeping a ruler. I'm not saying you have to go out and buy a wraps per inch guide, but I'm saying you should have a ruler because it's pretty handy to know what kind of yarn you've got, because we've all got those balls of yarn that are sitting in our stash. I mean, this has no ball band on it. I just went through, I have a couple of bins of just leftover balls of yarn and stuff that I would use for weaving, like in Sayori style or something. And this is one of those. It has no ball band, but I know that that's Noro crayon because I know Noro crayon. And I know that I had some, and I know it was in this color. But it's possible, I mean, there are sometimes I have cones of yarn or other balls of yarn that I'm like, I don't remember using that. I don't remember what that was from, because sometimes I get stashed from friends and it doesn't have the ball band on it. So I never used it. I have no memory of it. I can't go and find a Ravelry project that I had that used it. So it's just one of those things. It's handy to have. It's handy to use. So now that you've listened to me talk, pop on down to the blog and go finish looking at all of the information and the chart that I have, so you can kind of start getting an idea of how a wraps per inch guide can help you.